rise for the pledge.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. And since we have such a big crowd, I'd like to just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, because I'm sure you'll disperse once you're done with what you want to attend. We will start with the consent agenda. Have a motion from anybody on the consent agenda? Mrs. Bush?
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education approve the items listed on the consent agenda for November 21st school board.
Would anyone like to pull any of Mrs. Arn? Could you pull item C, please? Anyone else?
B.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, so I guess we're going to vote on item 1.1A. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
One abstention, Mr. Burchard. Okay. Item B, Mrs. Bush.
On the minutes, it was noted that Aaron was in attendance and he was not in attendance, our student representative.
And I have one item on that also, on page 3, when it says, Mrs. Fisher moved to nominate and elect Mark Kalina as treasurer. It was not me, so was it Mrs. Bush?
It was me.
It was Mrs. Bush. Any other additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes with these changes? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Mr. Bouchard abstains. Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, item C, Mrs. Arn.
Is this this request something that we've seen before? Dr. Conrad?
No, this is a joint application, and I think we have someone here, Mr. Burt, or
Mr. Testa.
Mr. Testa is here to share that, because there was not much information in there because it is such a joint effort with several other districts. So Mr. Testa would be very happy. That's why he's here to share in case there were questions on that particular one. So no, you have not seen it before, is the short answer.
The proposal says it was due on November 22nd,
That's correct.
so it has already been submitted?
Grants are submitted often in that way, and if the board does not approve of them, then we just don't accept them or we withdraw them.
Okay,
That's done often.
okay. And would it be appropriate for me to just get in touch with Mr. Testa just to ask my questions? I don't need to do that now.
He's right here.
Yeah, Mr. Testa, you want to?
No, I'm fine.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Nobody has any questions of Mr. Testa? Okay. Well, do we have a motion to approve this application? We need a motion if we want to do Mr. Holt.
I'll make the motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second? Mrs. Bush?
Second.
Any further discussion or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay. Item 2.0, Secretary's Report. 2.1, Opportunity for Board of Education to add or delete agenda items. Mr. Wool.
I'd like to delete item 5.12, the approval of the contract, because we're not ready to do it.
Is there a second on that? To delete 5.12, the approval of the librarian's contract.
The contract's not ready yet until we're finishing up the final touches.
Mr. Kemp?
Second.
Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 2.2, Rockville High School Student Representative Report. Who would like to go first? Olivia?
Good evening. So it has been going on at Rockville. We had Mr. RHS on Friday. I know some of you were able to attend. It was great, as always. Really funny, great group of guys went for it. Patrick Purcell won. He is talent. He mimicked the Blue Man Group, which it was fantastic and very creative, and others would agree with me, I'm sure. And it was just a great night. A lot of people showed up. You had to show up early to get a good seat. A lot of community members, so it wasn't just for the high school kids. It was really great to see so many people there. And it was just a lot of fun, and I think, that's something important, just be able to go out on Friday night to a school event and just enjoy yourself. So I thought that was great. Eastern Regional auditions were on Saturday, and from what we have been told, we have 6 instrumentalists who have made it, and 9 choral people, so that's really exciting. We're maintaining our standard of excellence, which is what I know the music department really strives for. So that was really exciting, out in Plainfield High School, so drove all the way there, and it was really great. So that was good. The Austin and Abby concert or benefit event is coming up, and I know the school's getting really riled up about it. There are posters everywhere. There's just a lot of support for it in general. For those of you who don't know, it is for 2 people in our community that are really in need. Austin, who has lymphoma, and Abby needs a kidney transplant. So, the town's coming together. If you aren't able to make it, there will be raffles there, donations. Just, it's a really great cause. I know so many people are up and coming. They want to perform. They want to do something to help. And I think that really reflects on the spirit of Rockville and the community all pitching in just to help. And I think it's a great thing. And if you're able to make it, please come. I just wanted to point out that one of my teachers recently received a smart board. And I know there's a lot of talk about how great they are, and I totally agree. He doesn't know how to use it. He hasn't turned it on yet. And it's been in his classroom for 2 weeks. And I'm not blaming him for that. I'm not blaming anyone for that, but something needs to be done because right now it just kind of looks pretty, but I don't think that's what they're made for. So I just wanted to point that out, that something needs to happen. And I just wanted to let you know that a lot of students are starting to question some of the talk about Common Core and different things that they haven't really learned much about. And I think it's important. I know you guys are still learning about it and understanding it, but if there's some way to get some of this information to the public so they're really able to understand and access what's going on in the school system. So that way students, instead of saying, well, they're getting rid of levels and just putting a negative light on it, they can understand, what's going on, why it's going on, and the state standards, and so that way they can understand rather than just hearing bits and pieces of it through other people. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ariel, would you like to conclude something?
The only real thing that I feel we need to comment on is with the sports coming up recently. We've had preseason started, and I've seen a bunch of new kids come around and a bit of excitement for the upcoming season. So I'm thinking this year is going to be a good outcome as a school, and people generally just seem to be excited about the sports coming up. So
Great.
that's it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Olivia or Ariel? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And now we'll move on to item 3.0, Community Forum. This is an opportunity for comments on agenda items, potential future agenda items, or general information provided to the board from citizens and community organizations. Is there anyone who would like to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Please state your name and address and if you can sign your name.
My name is Michelle Arroyo, and I'm at 35 Walker Terrace. I just wanted to address something that's been going on at Center Road School. One of our teachers had a medical issue, and she's now supposed to be out until at least March, as far as we know. I have twins in second grade. One of them has this teacher, and one has another one. And obviously, you can't plan for something like this for a teacher. She's been out since Halloween. The first week that she was out, we had a note from the principal saying that, you know, she was going to be out through January, and they were looking for a person to be a permanent sub in the class. And obviously, I understand it takes a while to find a permanent sub, that's not the issue. Another week later, we had a notice that there was going to be a permanent sub, he was assigned and he was starting and he was going to cover for her. He sent home a letter on the 15th, this wonderful notice with all the classroom information, reminders about what was going on. I was so happy because my daughter was excited that they were finally getting back into a routine again. 2 days later, he quit. And she came home from school last week and said, Mr. Singer's gone, we have another teacher now. This is their 6th teacher they have had since Halloween. She is so far behind my other daughter now. It's driving me crazy. We got another letter today saying that Mr. Singer left, they have this other teacher, they're now through, hopefully December 2nd, they'll have a new permanent sub that they're interviewing for now. And she said that, you know, transition from one teacher to another can be difficult. I would like to assure you that your child's curriculum and instruction has been the same as the other classes in 2nd grade. And I have a big issue with that because, as I said, I have twins. One has one teacher, one has the other. Tonight's homework for my daughter that has this teacher was to identify the parts of a flower and study it for a test tomorrow, and one math problem to review. My other daughter had a 2-page Unit 4 math assessment to go over for a test on Wednesday. I find a big discrepancy with what's going on in that classroom. I don't blame the subs, it's the whole situation of what's going on in there. As soon as one gets things organized, there's another one in there, and then things are changing. Today, my daughter said that they don't do the morning circle on the floor anymore with this teacher. This sub doesn't do that because she's from the high school. And she doesn't do that. So they don't sit down and go over the calendar and talk about the weather. And my daughter said how much she misses that because that was part of it she enjoyed. They're 7, you know. And the other thing that really bothered me was that my other daughter came home with this beautiful picture and a whole story that she had written about me and her. And it was very cute. And my other daughter started crying. And she said, I started working on that with one of my teachers and I don't know what happened to it. So I just want to make sure that someone is going to do something about this and make sure that these kids do not fall behind. Because if I have one daughter that's reading at a KLM level and one daughter that is reading at an H level and they're twins, they're never going to catch up and they're always going to be this far apart. And that really bothers me as a parent to see one of my children excelling and one of them falling behind and noticing that she's falling behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.
I don't have a pen, I can't sign.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item 3.1, Team of the Season presentation.
I see our athletic director, Dr. Lois Passell, coming forward. Dr. Passell has a wonderful idea to highlight and recognize our student athletes, one team per season. And so she's beginning with the fall season. She's chosen a team of athletes who truly embody the spirit of what we believe our student athletes at Rockville High School should be portraying. So I'll turn this over to Dr. Passell.
Thank you. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I think a lot of times we hear such negative things about the athletics at Rockville High School, but I can tell you that we have a lot to be proud of. We have teams that are successful. We have athletes that are highly successful, and again, we have a lot to be proud of, and I wanted to highlight one such group of athletes for you tonight, and for you and for the whole community. The team I've selected for the fall of 2013 is the girls cross-country team. Like Dr. Conway said, this team embodied all the positive qualities that is my goal for all of our teams. These girls were very supportive of each other throughout the season. They were very proud of each other's accomplishments, whether those were big or small accomplishments. They were very focused, they were hardworking, they were very dedicated to their sport. 2 mornings a week they got up at 5:30 a.m. to practice before school started. The girls are here tonight with their coach. Why don't you guys stand up so we can... first like to introduce to you their coach, Ray Owens. Come on up, Ray. If you don't know Mr. Owens, he teaches at VCMS, and he is also our indoor and outdoor girls track team coach. The team's accomplishments include they had a winning record. They ended up 4-3 in the very strong CCC East League. They were placed 4th out of 8 teams in that league, and they finished 14th out of 32 teams in the overall CCC. They were the runner-up in the open race at the Hartford Riverfront meet. They finished 3rd in the large school division of the Harry Garrity Invitational meet. They finished 10th in the very strong, this class actually had the state champion, Class MM state divisional meet, placing 3 runners in the top 30. Now I'd like to introduce to you the members of the team. The first young lady, see where they are, so as I make this wait, everybody. The first young lady had to miss the last 3 meets of the race for some reasons, but before she did that, she was on her way to having her absolute best season so far, and we look forward to her continuing that success in the indoor and outdoor season. That was junior Ashley Starrett. We do have one runner missing tonight. The way cross-country meets work, and Ray or Haley or somebody tell me if I got this wrong, but when you enter a race, they take the places of the top 5 finishers for your team, and that's how they score your team for the event. That's correct, right? Excellent. So this young lady, her name is Wendy Weston. She's a senior. She also is on the basketball team and tennis team for us. She's actually, a part of her family lives in Colorado, so she's there already for the Thanksgiving holiday, but she would often score in that 5th spot for us. Ranked 5th on the team is a young lady who I'm told always keeps the team laughing. Due to some medical issues, she's going to miss the indoor season for us, but we look forward to her return for the outdoor season. That's sophomore Mariah Wine. Ranked 4th on the team was the team's most improved runner over the course of the season. So we look for great things from this young lady in the future. She looks to have a very bright future. That's freshman Laura Dawson. Ranked 3rd on the team is a young lady who often scored in that 2nd spot as well. She finished 28th in the Class MM race. She often had to rush back from meets to take her place in the band's color guard as well, so she was real busy. Although not participating in the state open, I was impressed by the fact that this athlete came to warm up with our athlete who participated. She ran around the course to cheer her on, and again, I think it's just a display again of how close they all were and how well they supported each other. She also has a very bright future, freshman Chelsea Chatterton. Ranked 2nd on the team was the senior captain. This young lady actually captained the team for 3 years. She's a terrific young lady. She finished 24th in the Class MM race. And I think she's a perfect captain. She always was positive and enthusiastic and welcoming of new runners. That's our senior, Shayla Schoenberger. And finally, ranked number 1 on the team is a young lady who spent middle school and her first 2 years of high school as one of our soccer stars, but she switched to cross country really to be a stronger runner for indoor and outdoor, but she ended up doing a little bit more than that. In the Hartford Riverfront Invitational meet, she finished 3rd. She broke the Rockville High School record for a 3.1-mile course, running the course in 18 minutes and 41 seconds. She was the overall winner in the Harry Garrity Invitational meet, setting a meet record by running the course in 18 minutes and 42 seconds. She was undefeated, placing 1st in every dual meet that Rockville participated in. She finished 14th in the CCC Championship meet and 13th in the Class MM State meet, earning all conference honors and missing all state honors by 1 spot. Out of 867 runners who competed in the state divisional races, 181 of those runners qualified for and competed in the state open race. She did that, and in the entire state of Connecticut, she finished 44th. So most importantly, I think her coaches would say that she is what we want from all of our stars on our team. I think she set a standard for hard work and commitment to the sport and to our teammates that we would want from all of our star athletes, and that is Junior Heelgeest. So there they are. We are very proud of them. I look forward to presenting future teams of the season to you. And again, as much as you can, get out and support our teams. We really do have a terrific bunch of kids, and I think Rockville Athletics is really going to be on the rise now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and congratulations, girls, and thank you for sharing your accomplishments with us. It's wonderful. Now we move on to item 4.0, curriculum. 4.1, fall update from the instructional coaches.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. We have our coaches coming to the room, and they have provided the board with updates, occasional updates every year of their work, and they're going to do so now. The first third, or the first quarter of the year has gone by at this point, and they would like to provide you with an update. Who's our lead?
Where do we get
Good evening. We're here to present our fall coaching update to you. I thought we should start with some introductions. I'm Jen Miller. This is Jenny Fisher. And at the end here is Paula Hughes. We are the 3 instructional coaches. And next to me here is Megan Duffy, and she is the classroom and climate coach for our district. This year we are focusing our efforts on the Board of Education goal number 2, which is to increase the achievement of every student through a high-quality curriculum, instruction, and assessment. To do that, we are utilizing Vernon's strategy for improvement, and we are working in all 3 areas of this plan. We're working with teachers, students, and the curriculum. We thought tonight what would be most beneficial would be to just give you a window into our schools and let you see what coaching looks like in our district. So we took some pictures of our coaching in action, and I just want to give you a heads up that you'll see some of the faces of our students are blurred out just to respect their privacy, but other than that, the pictures should give you a good sense of how we do our jobs. So to start off, we just want to reiterate that research again and again shows us that the most important school-based factor in a child's education is that classroom teacher. That's where the difference is made. When we consider the complex changes and new demands on students, all teachers, both new and experienced, are in need of development. And we know that the most effective way to do this is on the job site training and with our own students in real time. So, looking up here, this is a picture. One thing that we tend to do with teachers is we sit down with them in grade level meetings. This is an opportunity. Right now, our teachers are not only trying to teach to the Common Core state standards, which are new, but Vernon also has a new initiative of implementing Readers and Writers Workshop, K-5. We have the opportunity to sit down with our teachers and to talk about, here we're talking about Unit 2, it's second grade teachers, a reading unit, and trying to just discuss and have a conversation about what does this unit look like. We first take a look at the standards, and this particular unit takes a look at being able to use both text and pictures to explain the setting, the plot, the characters, as well as being able to retell. So that sounds simple enough. However, if you looked at the Common Core state standards and you look at that same standard in K1, 3, 4, 5, there's only slight variations to the language of what those standards are asking. So we take the time to really research and delve into what does it look like So for example, what are first grade students being asked to do versus second grade students versus what's the pathway in third grade that they're going to need to be able to do. One thing we know is that we want to make sure that not only do we have consistency across the school, the different schools, but we also want to make sure our rigor is there. So in order to ensure that retelling and story elements are not taught the same way in first grade as they are in third grade, we provide this time to really sit down and take a look at resources and really try to interpret what these standards and units are asking. So once we've had a chance to sit down and do some planning with the teacher, determine the pathway for their students, it's time for us to model lessons for the teacher. The teachers really enjoy this. They don't often get the opportunity to watch other teachers in action and reflect on the choices that that teacher is making with their students. So we'll go in and model the instruction, deliver it in the workshop format. The teacher is able to take some notes, not only notes about what we're doing, but how are the students reacting to our instruction as well. A lot of times when they have the chance to sit back, they have their aha moment where, oh, now I get it, or wow, I can see how the students are now practicing that specific objective that you were teaching, and then that leads to some independent practice as well. So it's just a great opportunity for our teachers to watch the teaching and have a chance to reflect on it as well. Coaching may also look like, we talked about modeling lessons, but then we start to release the responsibility a little bit to the teacher, and we may be doing some co-teaching, where we provide feedback immediately to the teachers as they are teaching. Here is an example where a teacher was in a situation while she was teaching and was unsure of how to meet the needs of an individual student. So right then and there, we're able to coach them on the spot, provide them feedback, and in turn, they're able to provide feedback to that individual student. So it all comes back to that immediate impact on students, and instead of having to wait a week or 2 weeks to sit down with an observer, right then and there, we're able to make the changes, and that's where we'll see the difference in our student achievement. So finally, they've had a chance to see it and then to co-teach. Now it's time for the classroom teacher to step in and take the reins. So they get to do the teaching while we observe them. And we watch what the students are doing, we watch what the teacher's doing, we record all of our observations, and we'll pass that information along to the teacher. Oh, sorry. So this is probably one of the most critical components too, is having that opportunity to debrief with teachers. So we have that opportunity to really sit down and reflect what went well. This is both whether we are modeling a lesson or we have observed a teacher teaching. Just to talk about, like, what did you notice? Do you still have questions? Do you have concerns? So recently, when coaching with a student, with a teacher, sorry, modeling a lesson on writer's workshop. And the difference right now from where we've come from to where we are going with writing instruction is the students are really writing about something that they individually have a story to tell. And maybe perhaps in the past, they may have done more of a prompt piece where everybody was writing the same exact topic, you know, the haunted house story during Halloween. So now, students are writing about all different topics based on their experiences. Teachers struggle to understand, how do I keep track of all these students? How do I confer with them and make sure I'm meeting their needs? So after the model lesson, we gathered the materials and we gathered the student writing and we went through each student and we talked about what are their strengths, what are their needs, and then we were able to articulate what is the learning target for the next day. So there again, you're going to be able to differentiate your instruction immediately the following day, whether it's conferring or you're in small groups with the students. So you can see how we're trying to support those teachers in differentiating and supporting their students with those specific learning objectives immediately so that it translates day in and day out within the classroom. therefore improving student achievement.
Sometimes the teachers struggle though with more than just the content of the lessons. Sometimes the struggle is really the behaviors. Is it on? Okay. Really what we found out is that teachers don't have any time to waste in their classroom. There's a lot of content obviously that they need to cover. So my job is to help them work on those behaviors so that the behaviors are not getting in the way of that instruction. In this classroom, I had already observed with this teacher and helped this teacher pinpoint some of the behavioral areas that were getting in the way and what specific strategies I was going to ask her to implement in the room. So then I would work with her, I would be in the classroom with the students, and then I could also cue, again, in the moment, exactly when was the time that she needed to then implement one of those strategies. And as time goes on, she's able to do that more and more independently, and I don't need to cue. But again, afterwards, I also do that debriefing and go over with her. What worked this time? What didn't work? What would you like to change? What would you like to improve on?
You've heard about the teacher and the curriculum as part of the Vernon strategy for improvement in the triangle, and I'm going to be speaking about the student, obviously a very integral part of student achievement. If you remember, the student part of the triangle has two major components. One of them is to set personalized learning goals, and a second is the power of peers. Well, one of the benefits of both Readers and Writers Workshop is the opportunity to differentiate instruction. Coaches have worked a lot with teachers in modeling how to have a reading and writing conference with a student for that individualized instruction. During a conference, coaches model how to sit next to a student and very quickly determine what that student's critical need is in either reading or writing improvement. We provide the children with a very quick compliment and then get right to the work. Whatever skill that we deem to be the most pressing need, we model a very quick lesson and give them some instruction, and then we have them practice that skill in front of us. And we then leave that student with a personalized learning goal, and it's what he or she is going to work on when they're reading or writing until we have an opportunity to meet with them again. Right now, at this point in the year, teachers are helping students set those individualized goals. As the year evolves, students will start to learn how to set their own personal goals. The conferring time, the conferring time is one of the most difficult times for students and for teachers, I'm sorry. And we've been modeled, we've debriefed, we've done a lot of coaching in this area. So here, Jen is conferring with a student and taking notes about the student's strengths and weaknesses, and she'll communicate those to the student with the teacher looking on. So again, this is the coaching and our modeling. In the second slide, and the conferring, it's when we start to turn the reins over to the teacher. The teacher is knelt down next to the student, listening into the child's reading, and I'm just shadowing the teacher, and then we'll debrief later on to make sure that the teacher felt comfortable in her role with conferring, and we'll debrief about that conference and have kind of give and take conversation. I just wanted to share a story about an opportunity that I had. We've done lots of conferences with students in classrooms, and toward the beginning of the year in a first grade classroom, it was during the independent practice time, and one of the teachers said to me, could you possibly confer with one of my students? He's a struggling reader, he puts his head down, he's not very motivated, he's really having a hard time building up his reading stamina, and I would like to see what you do with this child. So I went over and the student kept his head down, and I said, could you, just put your head up and please take a look at this book with me. And I went over what the title of the book was, and it was Baby Brother. And he said, I don't like to read, I don't know how to read. He had no confidence. And I said, well, let's just take a look at it together. He found that he knew the word he on a page. And then he looked at the picture and saw that it was a baby brother, and the baby brother was crying. And he said, well, he's crying. And I said, well, guess what the page says? It says he's crying. And just by giving the child that opportunity to have confidence in themselves and be able to make that connection, and that was the goal that I left him with. It was as simple as you find the words that you can read, you look at the picture, and you tell the story, and that's reading. And from that day on, the boy was much more enthusiastic. And I don't know that sometimes under a traditional reading program that would always happen. With Reader's Workshop, we have the opportunity to do this individualized learning and goal setting with the student, and it seems to make a much bigger difference. And the second key component of the student section for the strategy for improvement is the power of peers. And I'm going to quote one of the Common Core State Standards. It's the Speaking and Listening Standard 1. It's so that we can prepare students for and participate in a range of conversations and collaborations with diverse partners, building on others' ideas and expressing their own clearly and persuasively. Research highlights that students learn better when they learn together. When you have the opportunity to teach another, that's the most effective way to learn. So we have to teach teachers how to set up students with learning opportunities such as these in the classroom so they can think together and live together and work together. And during both Readers and Writers Workshop, coaches have modeled and coached teachers on how to provide the students with those learning opportunities. During the direct instruction time of the teacher, the students have what we call turn and talk partners. It gives them an opportunity to start to practice what the teacher is teaching, and it gives them that peer support. Here is partner reading, and there's students that are first graders. If you think back to when you were in first grade, and look at this picture, I know that I didn't read like that when I was in first grade. Having the opportunity to read with a friend that can help with looking at the pictures, telling the story, reading the words that they know, and just to me that just shows a lot about what Common Core aligned units can do for children. And then there's another slide just that shows the power of peers with writing. The students are telling each other their stories and coaching each other to add details to their stories. So coaches are instrumental in showing both students and teachers how students are a major component in their own achievement and their own education. Coaches do that by motivating and inspiring them to set goals that are challenging yet achievable, and they recognize the power of peers, both of which are lifelong critical skills.
Just to sort of piggyback on that, students often teach us what they need. We just need to pay attention and try to figure that out. So when it comes to the work that I do, when I'm working in this classroom, I'm also able to work sometimes individually with different students, and then use that common experience that both the teacher and I are having, because we're in the classroom at the same time together, seeing and hearing the same things, and then when we sit down, we can have a real reflection about what we saw. And in this case, we were both learning, and the teacher was able to self-reflect that the task that she had set for the students was too difficult for them to do independently. They needed a lot of individual help. So what she learned was that she needs to adjust her lessons so that she can break down those skills more and set up those students for success.
So thank you for giving us the opportunity tonight to speak with you. We just wanted to leave you with a summary that coaching is increasing student achievement by changing teacher practice to better meet the needs of our students in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for our coaches? Mr. Brutar.
Thank you. I have a very difficult question. And I don't even know how to ask it. And I will try to be honest and truthful to the position that I have if I don't. Dr. Conway, when did we get the institution of coaches in the schools? Over the years I have been on the board, we never had the coaches. And what happens that we have these extra layers in this process that it increases the cost of education to the school and consequently to the taxpayers. That's my question.
Yes.
And I again say, I don't want anybody to get wrong what I'm saying. I am all for education. And even though when I go outside, people ask me, what are you doing on the board now that your children are come and gone? And my answer to them is, I am here to pay back what my children got. And I tell you, they got good education, they have good responsible positions in the country and the job market. So Dr. Conway, that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Buttar, we have had coaches in Vernon for 3 years starting this January, is that correct? 3 of the 4 coaches in front of you started at that point. All 4 of these coaches' salaries are paid for by the Alliance grant. In their first year, it was by the Education Jobs Fund grant. Following that, it was, what was the second grant? Someone remember the name? And then the Alliance grant we have had for 1.5 years that their salaries and going forward are paid there. The reason we have added this other layer is that I think it was as Mrs. Jen Fisher said a few moments ago, we know that the most important element in a child's education, the person or the thing that has the most effect is a highly effective teacher. And so we are growing, creating, developing highly effective teachers. That is not to say we don't have good teachers, because we have very good teachers, but they can all get better. And as we're developing, they're working with individuals, but they are spreading the same news and differentiating. They're giving each teacher what they need in order to improve. And so they are really raising the entire fleet of boats, all of the teachers together. So they are building the capacity of the entire district to do this work. This is not work that they did when they were in high school or college. This is certainly not work that I did as well. On top of what we're asking teachers to do in a normal day, we're adding the Common Core state standards. So we're creating new curriculum. We don't know how to teach that. We didn't learn that way. None of us here at this table learned that way. None of us would know how to teach that, teach it in terms of that. And so these 4 coaches are figuring that out, and they are working with our teachers in order to do that. That is probably one of the toughest jobs we have in the district going forward, is integrating the Common Core. It is a highly rigorous curriculum. It is what we want all kids to know and be able to do when they graduate from high school. And so unfortunately, we only have 4 coaches. I think we had 7 2 years ago. And so we're down to 4 right now. But they are very essential for the proper implementation and successful implementation of the Common Core and the successful growth of all of our teachers. So I'm very grateful to them. They do an outstanding job. I learn so much every time they come and present here as well.
Thank you. I understand that the coaches are paid by the Alliance money. I don't know if Alliance funds will be coming forever, or God forbid if they get stopped for some reason or the other, what will happen to them? Where will the money come to pay for them at that point in time?
Mrs. Fisher? Yes, thank you. We had spoken about this several years ago. In fact, when the Education Jobs Fund came in, we knew it was only for 2 years. And we thought that the benefit of having coaches for our teachers was so great that even if it was only for 2 years, that we were going to do it. We are continuing that. We said that again when we first got the Alliance grant 1.5 years ago. We said the same thing. We also said that as we go through these 5 years we're supposed to have for the Alliance grant, so 3 more after this one. As we go through these 5 years, if there are positions that we as a district believe need to be included in our local budget, that we would be asking the board to include that in our local budget. When we first started with coaches, our hope was that we would be raising the capacity of our teachers to coach each other, and we would not need coaches. I don't think I could ever say we really don't need coaches, but truly that was something we said to everyone, is that we are hoping to build the skills and abilities of our teachers to get to that point where they are working with each other, and if these positions go away, that in 3 more years that we will not miss them as much as we could miss them right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Buttari, still on the floor.
Thank you. I understand Common Core is the going thing in the education of the children at this point of time in our history. And I hope that they are there for the children and they are not taken away for budget reasons or whatever the reasons. Do you have any plans to put the money from the regular budget to fund them at that point of time or what?
I'm sorry, may I clarify? You want to know if we have plans to use local funds to fund the coaches?
Right, right.
At this point, we are still going forward with the Alliance grant funding. Last year, there were 2 coaches in the local budget, and the board chose to cut those 2 positions. And that's why we are down to 4 coaches here now. So we certainly will give that another attempt, because we do believe there are positions that are very valuable. There are a lot of very valuable positions that we would be bringing forward in the budget. So that will be a very difficult decision for the board to make.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Bush.
I'm about to put on my teacher hat and just make a few comments about it through you. One of the things that we're dealing with in the our new teacher evaluation system is that our professional development is embedded within our everyday teaching, and it's not something we just sit down and we get, and then we go back and teach the kids, and we never visit it again. Our new way of getting professional development is to learn, practice, and evaluate how we're doing. And this is one way that we are able to do that at this time. And what I think they're also creating is teachers, through collaboration, can be coaches to each other. And that's, from what I'm hearing, is that that's what they're trying to promote. So they, when their Alliance grant money is done, they will probably go back in the classroom, and they'll be doing that for their groups of teachers if we do not fund them through our district. So at this point, using that money and using through the Alliance grant, I think is really beneficial for our teachers, and as Dr. Conway says, growing our teachers. So I really appreciate what they're doing. I wish I had you guys coming into my classroom some days. And but even in my school, we help each other. And I see that happening all over the state and all over the country. So I'm happy we have you all for now. And keep up the good work.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Mrs. Arndt?
How much Common Core curriculum has been written in Vernon?
Thank you. I'll turn that back over to Mr. Byrd. I think he attempted to answer that at our last meeting as well.
Right, K through 5, we have the first unit done for reading and writing, if that's correct. And we are going to be working on the rest of the units in February. And then we are looking to...
First unit covers how much, Mr. Burt?
I could turn it over to Mr. Gussie if you're available.
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Ms. Chairman. We have the first and second reading and writing unit in grades K through 6 written and distributed to teachers. And we've worked on revising the scope and sequence for all grade levels K through 6 in English language arts. So that's both the reading and the writing units, so that they're more clearly aligned. And we've added and supplemented especially the later units in the upper grade levels, so that they have reading literature standards and reading information standards, instead of just, for instance, our 4th grade unit and 5th grade, 4th unit rather in 5th grade, had the board approved curriculum we're just supplementing. So it had one speaking listening standard and one reading foundational standard. So we've just tried to ensure that it's rigorous, as the coaches were saying. It includes some reading fiction and reading informational standards. And moving forward throughout the year, we're working with the coaches, grade level teams at each building, and then anytime we have on professional development days to work with grade level teams and collaboratively develop those units. So assessments, teaching points, basically the implementation guides for those units. We have the overarching standards in place.
Could I just, I'm not a teacher, so if you would clarify for me, please. First and second units, K through 6 is what you said.
I'm sorry, K through 5, so
K through
those
5.
6 grade levels.
Okay. How long a period of time in the school year, in the teaching year, does that cover?
Up until about 2 weeks from now, and we're working on the third units as we speak.
Okay, so this is if I say experiment, I guess it is, that's what all school districts are going through. You have standards and guidelines, but you're scrambling to put it together just in front of the curve. You have 2 weeks worth left, 2 weeks of curriculum left. Is that right? Is that what you just told me?
In our more clearly articulated curriculum, yes. So the teachers have been working with these standards for the past couple of years. What we're doing now is trying to give more guidance so that students across elementary schools have a more common experience. They all have the same high standards. So
I
yes.
understand, but we don't have curriculum to take a teacher through an entire year, and right now you have 2 weeks worth of curriculum left. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. How on earth can coaches, how can you coach teachers when there isn't a curriculum? I'm not understanding that.
As of right now, what we're coaching on is based on the curriculum that we're using. So right now, teachers are within Unit 2, and so we're interpreting it, and there are standards in place right now that we've had for a couple of years, and for middle school and high school that where teachers are being asked to, they really are only in one content area. They're able to take that time during their planning to really delve in deep and interpret those standards. So at the elementary level, they're responsible for teaching all the different subjects. So although they have the standards in the curriculum that the Board of Ed did approve, we are now kind of adding the meat to those standards.
But standards is not curriculum, is that right? Standards are standards, and that's how you write curriculum based on standards.
I think there's different philosophies of thought.
I'm really trying to understand what we have in place, and if I'm understanding what Mr. Gussie said, there is not a curriculum going forward. After 2 weeks, there are standards, and I'm trying to understand how you can coach when there is not a curriculum.
So if I can jump in, I think the coaches understand what the goals are. So the goals are set. We know what the standards are for each unit. Those are the expectations for each unit at each grade level. And we have available to us the appendices of the Common Core. So for language arts, Appendix A is the research backing up the standards. Appendix B are text exemplars at each grade level for different genres. And Appendix C is the student writing samples. And underneath of those is articulated much more clearly what standards are addressed by those examples. So we know the goal that we're working towards.
Don't the teachers know the goal as well?
Correct. So what we're trying to do is help them understand how to get towards that goal. So some districts, what they've done is they have much less clear curriculum, but their curricula nonetheless that set the goals at the end of the unit. So they have overarching standards, they have big ideas, essential questions, and then they have assessments, and it's up to the individual teachers to use their professional judgment. They've all been through teaching school, they have bachelor's degrees. If they don't have a master's degree, they're working towards one or have to have one to retain their job in Connecticut. So there's a lot of expertise amongst all of our teachers. And we're not trying to, I don't want to devalue the work that the teachers have done over the past couple of years. So it's kind of intricate work because I'm trying to integrate what teachers have done at Maple Street and Northeast and Skinner Road and Center Road, all of our elementary schools. Again, not devalue what they've done, but make sure that it's meeting those end-of-unit standards. And then trying to coach those teachers with the help of the coaches, principals, reading teachers, grade level instructional leaders that are just part of the teaching staff, towards instruction that, you say it's experimental. Yes, we're teaching in different ways than we have in the past in most of our classes. But it's not purely experimental. It's based in the past several decades of reading, writing, research, literacy research. We spent billions of dollars in the United States. And so it's an experiment here in Vernon, but it's well-tested, well-proven practice.
I'm not.
And yes, and I understand, I hear your concern, right, so and I think Mrs. Bush would say, yeah, I'd like to know, what am I doing after the holiday break in January to see where they're headed. So again, the teachers have an overarching, higher altitude view of where they're headed for each unit, but they don't have the nitty-gritty, what am I going to do in my mini lesson, what might my mid-workshop teaching point be, what am I going to focus on at the end of the lesson? And a good teacher, to be honest, is adjusting that on the fly based on what they see. They're being receptive to the students in front of them. So yes, you're right, and I share your concern, and we're trying the best we can with the resources available to us to get those curriculum written, distributed, and letting the teachers have that resource to them. But again, a really good teacher is using those implementation guides just as a guide towards the end of the unit goals, and to respect the professionalism, the knowledge, and the care that the teachers have for their kids. They're not going to follow those implementation guides lockstep. So yes, they're going to be helpful to most of our teachers, and we're getting them out as soon as we can.
I'm not devaluing teachers at all.
Time,
not for one.
resources are a concern, but
What I'm trying to do, and I mean nothing disparaging about the coaches, I'm trying to value what the coaches are doing when there is no curriculum. What are they doing?
The coaches have done a tremendous amount of work to help us.
I keep hearing that.
Michelle, I think Mrs. Hughes would like to help to say something.
Sure. I would just like to say that we are, even though we're coaching, and right now we're coaching on Unit 2, while we're coaching on Unit 2, we are also taking time to work on Unit 3. We've already written a couple grade levels for Unit 3, and you're right, we are staying ahead of the curve, and we plan on continuing to do that for the remainder of the year. So we will have units written prior to the teachers meeting them, and then we'll be able to coach on those units. So Unit 2 is done, and we are working on Unit 3 as we speak.
You have that advantage, the teachers don't, according to Mr. Gussie. That they have the overview, they have the far away view.
But they'll get the specific units when we are done with them.
And just in response to that as well, just meeting with the grade level recently, for a specific grade level, they wanted to know exactly what the unit was going to look like for Unit 3 in order to start planning. So even though we didn't have every single piece together, ready to be posted, I was able to still go through and guide the teachers and show them what are the big bends, what are the big ideas, this is the goals, this is the end goals, and this is how we're getting there. And like we said before, we don't want the teachers following it step by step, day by day. It's really about, this is a guideline, these are some possible lessons that you can teach to get to the end, but we want you to think about who are those students sitting in front of you, and you want to meet their individual needs. So
teachers know that, don't they? That they need to meet individual needs.
I think it's a very hard thing to do in the classroom with so many varying needs.
How do coaches help teachers coordinate time? We've heard in the past that what teachers have not been able to get enough of is time to spend with their teaching peers in the same building and in other buildings. How do you help facilitate that?
We have facilitated that in several ways this year. We are attending grade level meetings at each grade at each school. So pulling the whole team together to go over lessons, overarching standards, that kind of thing. And we also are helping teachers go across schools. So for example, we had a kindergarten teacher who wanted to see what was happening at a different school in a different teacher's kindergarten class. So we were the catalyst. We were able to make that happen for the teacher and get them to observe their peer.
A principal can't make that happen?
I think we're on the ground in a lot of schools and have kind of a unique position that we get to be in all 5 schools all the time. So we know if you have a specific need, here's where you can find a good model or a good example. So a principal might be more in their own school where we're on the ground in all 5 schools. So we're able to facilitate that.
And there was a bullet point about coaching.
Please use your microphone so we can hear you back here.
Thought I was. That you instruct, coach paraprofessionals. In what way? What kinds of things do you do with paraprofessionals?
I can speak to that point. At one of the schools, the teachers were saying that they needed to have some guidance on how to have the paraprofessionals be able to confer with the students, not quite as well probably as the classroom teacher could, but just instead of misguiding the students, for instance, in writer's workshop. When they're writing in kindergarten and first grade, we don't want a paraprofessional or a teacher to tell them exactly how to spell a word. The students should be able to write the sounds that they hear. So I did put together guidelines for the paraprofessionals of how to support the students and the teachers best in their classroom to scaffold their learning without actually telling them exactly how, so that the child would have that learning experience. So it was just a list of guidelines, and then I sat with the paraprofessionals and how to best support the students.
Mr. Kemp, did you have a question?
I did a while ago.
Can you speak into your microphone, please?
I did a while ago. I thought a while ago I heard our administrators tell us that we were ahead of it and they intend to stay there. I heard that a while ago. As long as they are going to keep our instruction ahead of the curve, I'm satisfied. I don't think that this is significantly different than I hear is the situation in other towns. We're not the only ones who were presented with Common Core yesterday. And the English standards, and then finally the math standards, and the science standards we don't have yet. So if you were asked the same kind of question about science, you would say we don't have a curriculum, correct? Okay. Well, as soon as you get that kind of clarity, you'll be able to deal with it. So you're ahead of the curve in certain pieces, and you will get ahead of the curve or establish a curriculum when you understand what the Common Core standards are when they're articulated and given to you. Is that fairly accurate?
I think your example of the science standards is apt in this case. We were going to work on the science curricula this year, and the department leader and the department chair at the middle school and high school really asked me to put the brakes on. The teaching is continuing. They will continue to teach what they've taught for years. It's just that they would not be compliant with the new science standards that have come out from, the national standards have come out. The state then has to approve them. So we're waiting for the state to catch up to the nation in this case, and then we can move forward with any kind of adjustments and realignment, and that'll be part of our overall revision cycle. I feel your frustration as well, Ms. Arnn, in the fact that, yes, we wanted to have all these things completely done and ready to go for the start of school, and we are playing catch up, and that's part of the process. And I actually thank the coaches tremendously for their work. I do know that they do spend some part of their time putting together those larger concepts of units. The thing to note as well is that teachers have been teaching reading for years, they've been teaching writing for years. They can still adapt a lot of those key elements that they've used to the new styles. And they can adapt some of the resources that they used into the Readers Writers Workshop model. And that model is something that can be continued throughout the course of the year. You're just going to change the game as it goes through. It's exactly what standards you're looking for, some of the language you're looking for, the objectives and the goals. So the model is true. It's just what the specifics are for that particular unit will change. So it's not as if, 2 weeks from now we're going to fall off a curriculum cliff and we're not going to be able to teach anything. That we're going to continue to teach to the best efforts and through the efforts of the coaches and Mr. Gusty and Mr. Testa to stay ahead of the curve. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hull.
Mr. Kemp.
Oh, Mr. Kemp.
No,
sorry.
you issued a qualified answer. You used the word resources or having enough more than once. I think I heard it 3 times. Would you please clarify a little bit more for me and us what you meant by provided you have the resources?
I'm trying to remember how I used that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Can you provide the resources? I think we
You
have,
said
well, just
provided-
correct, we have time, we have money, we have people, there's books and libraries. We're planning on going through each classroom and check out the school libraries for each of the K through 5 libraries. We were planning on using curriculum funds for both during the year curriculum writing as well as in June. We're going to cut the Curriculum Academy as well in August. Looking for folks to sit in these seats to make sure that they have the best skills. Make sure we have the best technology available and the best computer software to support our efforts. We are looking at a new student management system to help us give us better data, both in terms of the long-range assessments and formative assessments along the way, so we know that if we are implementing a new curriculum, we can evaluate whether or not it's actually assessing the things or providing the curricula that we want to provide to our students.
All right, thank you.
I just wanted to say to the coaches, thank you for the written report that we got in advance, and having a different presentation here tonight to actually illustrate for us what you're doing in the classroom. I think you're doing a great job. I think data that you showed, I applaud the teachers who are reaching out to you and taking advantage of that on-the-job professional development to help our kids do better. I think that's, those numbers show that there are people who are taking advantage of it. I have the advantage of having professional development at my work. I take advantage of it. Not all my colleagues do. So I applaud you on what you do. I think you're doing a wonderful job, and thank you for the presentation tonight.
Mrs. Bush.
Yes, I'd like to just kind of make one last comment where the curriculum is an evolving process. As you write it, teachers use it, teachers make suggestions, then it goes and there's changes made to better it. So at this point, we've been given the Common Core overarching standards, and then we go and we try things in the classroom. It's not experiments. We know what we're doing. We're professionals. And at that point, we give suggestions to help develop that curriculum the best we can. So these are things that we live on a daily basis. We give input, which is so important to have the teacher's input. We, if an assessment, we see that they're not performing as well on an assessment, we need to develop things that would individualize that to the needs of the students in each class and each grade level. And like you said, we do this on a daily basis. We make adjustments just like you will be doing to your curriculum at all times. So it's an evolving process. It's not something you can just hand a teacher a book and say, this is the curriculum. It is always going to be changing, and you can't just rely on handing a unit and doing it. We are master degree teachers that have been doing this for most of us quite a long time, and it's not just something that is a curriculum. In fact, that is a guide to us. We work carefully to make sure that each child's needs are met. So it doesn't change because we're handed the curriculum. We do it every day.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much for your report and for the time.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to a future report later in the year. Thank you. Now we'll move on to general business, 5.0, 5.1, National FFA Convention presentation.
Hello, how are you? Okay, my name is Tara Harlow, and I am one of the 4 teachers in the Agriculture Education Department at Rockville High School. And standing before you are the students that traveled to the National FFA Convention in Louisville, Kentucky last month.
We wanted to come here to tell you a little bit about our trip. Thank you for approving the trip, and just give you some of the highlights of some of the things that the students got to do while they were in Kentucky. I'd first like to welcome our new board members. Thank you very much, and we're really excited to have you. And also to Mrs. Bush, congratulations. And we're also looking forward to working with Mr. Stansel as our liaison. And thank you. Oh, I looked at Mrs. Fisher. Sorry. And Mrs. Bush, thank you for being our liaison and all the wonderful things that you were able to do with us. We really appreciate it. You're welcome. Our FFA members today, starting from my left, are Mary Shane from Vernon, Katie Davis from Manchester, Dan Zen from South Windsor, Shelby Barnes from Vernon, Samantha Vizino from Bolton, Katie Hearn from Ellington, and Emma Flavel from Ellington. And you'll hear a little bit about our equine team that competed at the National Convention, but those team members were Katie, Emma, and Sammy, and also one of our 2013 graduates, Erin DeLubac. She also competed at the National Convention, and she's currently in school at Virginia Tech, and her father drove over to Kentucky to compete in the competition. I'd also like to recognize Mr. and Mrs. Zen, who traveled to Kentucky with us as our chaperones, and they upfronted the cost of attending so that they could be part of that trip, and they believe in the FFA and the convention, and we were so happy to have them. So Mr. Zen is here. Mrs. Zen wishes she could be here. She has a family commitment, so we're very fortunate to have really supportive parents in our program. So we're going to give you our presentation.
So we went to the National FFA Convention. This convention has been held in Indianapolis, Indiana for
The microphone a lot closer to you. Thank you.
For the last past 7 years. It's been held in Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is the first year back in Louisville, Kentucky. This was a record high number of attendance for this convention. There's 62,000 members and guests present, and this is the largest youth conference in the world. And this is a picture of us all together outside of the Freedom Hall where they held all the sessions during the conventions.
So for the first general session that was held, the keynote speaker was Rick Pitino, and he was the Louisville men's basketball coach. And he talked about his coaching style and kind of a one-day contract, and he actually wrote a book on it, which I have with me. And he kind of told us the basis of writing his book and kind of related things to basketball, but still kind of to an everyday life. He said usually basketball players sign a 5 to 7 year contract, but he believes that people should live their lives through one day, as they had a one-day contract. He explained kind of the values of life and kind of doing it all in one day, and he was kind of strict on the technology and said kind of use it wisely and pay attention to what's going on around you and don't miss anything.
So the second general session that we went to featured Lieutenant Joe Torillo from the New York City Fire Department. He's since retired, but his main goal of his speech was to just share that life is going to throw you some challenges, but you just have to make the best of the situation. In 1999, he was injured in a fire, hurt his hand, and they put him in charge of fire education, fire and life safety, things like that. He hated it at first. He wanted to be out fighting fires, but instead he had to sit in the office. But he decided that he had to make the best of the situation. So he worked with Fisher-Price to develop Billy Blazes, which is a rescue hero action figure toy that was set to be unveiled on 9/11 because of 911, the telephone number for emergency services. On his way to unveil Billy Blazes, the first World Trade Center tower was hit. So he parked his car and he ran towards the World Trade Center. That's what a lot of firefighters and police officers did that day, no matter what they're doing off duty or on duty. Excuse me. And he was buried in the collapse of the first tower, broke multiple ribs, internal bleeding, things like that. And then they put him on a boat to send him across the Hudson River to a hospital, and the boat was struck by a steel beam from the collapse of the second building. He's the only living known survivor that was buried twice. And today he travels the world and tells the story about, just getting back up from when you fall down and making the best of your situations. It really meant a lot to me personally. I got a lot from this speech because I'm a volunteer firefighter in South Windsor. So I was able to combine, my passions for the fire service and agriculture at the same time. So.
We also have the Dodge commercial. It was shown the 2013 Super Bowl, and it was one of the most popular this year. The poem was written by Paul Harvey, and he wrote it in 1978. And we have the official Ram Truck Super Bowl commercial for you to look at today.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, and dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shake an axe handle, grown persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then painting from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend to paint combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk, somebody who'd bail a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
And if you notice at the bottom, at the bottom of the commercial, it had the FFA symbol to represent us. This commercial was so popular in the ag community and in the FFA organization that Dodge committed to donating $100,000 for every 1 million views on the internet, and they would only, it was a $1 million maximum. We got 10 million views in 4 days. At the general session we attended, Dodge presented the National FFA Foundation with a check for $1 million. He is all the way on the left, and there's also Easton Corbin in there.
So, another highlight of our trip to Louisville was we were able to go to the Grader's Ice Cream Tour. Grader's is an organization, or a family-owned business, which was made in 1870. Grader's Ice Cream is one of the top 5 oldest family-owned and operating businesses in the world. In the country, excuse me. Today, Grader's still makes ice cream by doing the French pot. Excuse me. By making the French pot ice cream method, which is using specific containers that helps, or using specialized containers, rock salt to melt the water and create the ice cream to be cold, as well as a wooden paddle to hand stir the ice cream. They make this product 2 gallons at a time, and when the finished product is done, they hand package the ice cream by a pint at a time. On this tour, we learned that even though ice cream can be made by machine, this family still makes a great product and profit, built off family tradition.
One of the main things that we did in Kentucky was the Equine Career Development event. As Ms. Harlow said, it consisted of myself, Emma Flavel, Sammy Pizzino, and Aaron Zluback, who's at Virginia Tech. It was a 2-day contest. We started off, we had to judge 8 classes of horses, 2 under saddle and 2 in hand. We also had to give 4 sets of oral reasons, 2 from the in hand and 2 from the under saddle. And we also had to take a multiple choice test, and that took about 6 hours. And then the next day, that was Wednesday, and then Thursday we also had to go back and do our team event. There was 5 different team events that we did. One of them was grooming and tacking up a horse. We had to identify farrier tools, do feed rations, and also some medicine rations as well. So we placed in one of the top bronze teams. And as individuals, we got 3 silvers and 1 bronze. So, and we got 33 out of the 45 teams that competed.
One of the tours that we were able to go on was the Altech Equine Facility in Lexington, Kentucky. At Altech, they hold a bunch of equine events. Some of the equine events that they hold are the McClay Finals, and 2 years ago they held the World Equine Games. While we were there, we got to meet Harry D. Leary. There was a book written on him called The $80 Champion. I read this book before we even went, and when I saw him, I knew exactly who it was. And as he was telling his story, which was he was an immigrant, and he came over to the U.S. and he was poor. He had nothing. He was driving home one night and he saw this horse that was going to the slaughterhouse. He paid $80 for him, and after hard work, over a couple years, the horse became the #1 horse in the country. Actually, I think the world. He won the Olympics and a bunch of other great equine events.
Okay. Ms. Harlow, she made journals for us, and they look like this. And every night, no matter how late we got back to the hotel, sometimes after midnight, we all gathered together as a group and we journaled about our favorite experiences on the trips and the highs and lows of the day and what meant most to us on the trip. And here's some pictures of us reflecting on our activities and journaling at night. I believe those pictures are from the midnight ones. We'd also like to thank you for the opportunity for us to attend this meeting and thank you for supporting the program and our students. And is there any other questions?
Does anybody have any questions? No, thank you so much for your presentation. It sounds like it was a wonderful trip, and hope you get to go again next year. Mr. Bouchard.
Thank you. I just want to let you know that I come from the family of farmers. And before I came here, in the summers I used to go and help my family. The temperature used to be 110, 15, up to 20, 120 degrees. The winter was not that bad though. So it's great to be a farmer, but also I must tell you, give you a line from the American history. Vice President Hubert Humphrey, when he lost the election, he traveled and he coincidentally went to my hometown when I was over there on vacation, and he said America is great because of its agriculture. And I compliment you for choosing agriculture in your career. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the added touch of the ice cream. That was great. Now we'll move on to item 5.2, community service update from Rockville High School.
I think Ms. Marinan is trying to make her way to the microphone.
Hi guys, nice to
here.
I don't know if I should be disappointed that nobody's left in the audience.
Good evening. Thank you for the invitation to share an update of where we are with the community service. I don't have a ton of information to share, but I'd like to provide you the update. I'm sure you got in your board packet that we still have about 60 students from the class of 2016, last year's freshmen, who have still not completed their community service to date. That does not mean they haven't completed their any hours, just means that at this moment they have not completed their complete 10. So they're also in that number to date of the freshmen who have incompletes for this year. We do have students that move all the time. I have a couple students right now that every day I left my paper at home, and so I'm waiting for that paper. So I have a couple that will be moving from 9th grade to 10th grade as soon as that paper gets into my office. We continue to move forward in trying to
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just wanted to be able to show you a quick thing if I can. If I can't, it's all right. So we still are proceeding forward, working with students all the time and trying to develop opportunities, to recruit opportunities, to share that information. I began emailing parents and students when opportunities came about. I've gotten quite a few emails in response from parents thanking them for sharing those opportunities with them. Different times of the year, we get different amounts of community service. I know the past 2 weekends, a lot of our students have been working at our local Stop and Shops, volunteering their time with the food jobs that have been going on, working with Hockanum Valley as well. So there's a lot of different things that have been coming about, but I do believe that the culture is starting to change, and I see that even with grade 10, where 48 students have already completed their hours for this year so far. So I am looking forward to it. I do believe a lot has come about. The thing I would like to show you is that one of the difficult tasks we've had is tracking all of the hours and being able to easily tell you how many hours students have done, that kind of information. Through this system, I was able to come across, this company has developed a database tracking system that I was able to acquire for free, which was a nice thing to find. And we're working with them right now on importing information, what we have, what we're getting, in order to be able to use it for students. What's nice about it also is that area agencies, not-for-profit agencies, can register on this particular site with this company, and they can offer opportunities, put them out there themselves. So there are a couple that are already out there if they happen to have something per se. So I'll just show you real quickly what this might look like.
We have to plug in the speakers.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Tracking service hours should be as digital as your students. If the strategic initiatives for your district include 21st century transformation, then our award-winning product X2 Vol can help you get digital and provide the authentication and verification tools you need to replace your paper tracking process. X2 Vol is being used by public and private schools nationwide. Here's how it works. X2 Vol is customized to your school and your specific service program. We'll help you set it up. School-approved community organizations post opportunities for the students, and then students sign up for the events. They'll receive a reminder 2 days prior to the event to make sure that they show up. When they're ready to log their hours, they'll include the date, the number of hours, contact information, and their reflections. Verification, approval, and authentication is part of X2Vol's process. Service history is available online to the student, the school, and the parents for use on the college applications, scholarships, and resumes. Your students are making a positive difference in the community. Recognize them and your school. It's easy to get started. We look forward to working with you.
So we have made that commitment and have moved forward with them. We are in the process of establishing those goals and figuring out how we're going to import the data from our 9th grade because it's all individual paper right now, so we're working on that in the process. But we're looking forward, we're moving forward, so everything is good.
Does anybody have any questions? Mrs. Arn?
Kim, how are you going to help students who have incompletes will they have the opportunity to catch up and get?
Yep, absolutely. And we go specifically after the students. So if a opportunity presents itself, as counselors, we'll go after our students that we know still have incompletes from last year and tell them about them or tell their parents about that opportunity pretty much first before other people. But we still put things out for announcements for all students as well. I still, like big events, I'll put out in an email to parents and students just because you never know who's available at what particular time.
And I recognize, as valid as I believe this is, I recognize that it was a job for you guys. I appreciate you working that hard on it. I also recognize that it was a change in thinking. And I'm glad to hear you say that you think that that population is making a shift toward understanding that this is real and important and has to be done. Is that basically what you said?
Yeah, it's not a shock anymore.
Good.
And it's part of what we're working into. So for example, I put out an advisory. It was an advisory activity that was talked about both with the freshman class and the sophomore class. Even just discussing what things you did last year to share opportunities with other students in the classroom if maybe they hadn't and had an idea now of what they could do. We still talk about it in our individual sessions with kids, especially meeting with our 9th graders. And saying, you know, what's your plan for this year? How do you think you're going to get it done? So there's a lot of conversation about it. There's still a population that kind of thinks it's not going to be a big deal, but we're working with them. And so I'm hopeful that there won't be a high number pretty soon.
Last time you were here, there were concerns about opportunities for all the students. Are they finding more creative ways to fulfill the obligation?
I believe so. I think the word is out just about community service, so anytime there's an idea, the Vernon Community Network asked me to come and present to them too about what our expectations are so that they could help get in on the project as well. So I'm trying to do what I can to publicize it and get that information out and trying to work within even the confines of school, what kind of things would be there on its own. A lot of students are volunteering for the Rock Strong program next week, so a lot of opportunities are presenting themselves.
And just because I was liaison at Northeast School for a couple of years, I know that that school took advantage of a pool of students who were looking to fulfill their community service obligations. So the PTO started using them as well. I'm hoping that that's something that will
still continues. Yep, I'm working quite a few of the PTOs are letting me know of their different opportunities. And that's why I'm really looking forward to getting this up and running too, because then they can just get on there and put their own stuff on there anytime they have it. And they don't have to like go through a third person. They can just put their opportunities on there.
Nice. Thank you, Kim, for hanging in there.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Kim.
Yes, we appreciate the work that you're doing. I want to make a point that ultimately, it's the student's responsibility to find and develop the service learning opportunities. We never wanted this to become something that was your task to offer up to them exclusively. We're glad you're doing some of the facilitation, but part of the message here and part of the objective was to have the students not only do the service, but create the opportunity and find it themselves. Because once they're out of Rockville High School, you're not going to be there to hand it to them anymore. So they need to find ways to do that. And just, may I say, it's only 10 hours. I know there was a big conversation about it should have only been 5. We didn't think 10 was all that much. And push this forward a few years, I'd rather see it be much more than 10 hours per year. But I know one step at a time, and I'm glad it's moving forward, okay? And to the extent that you can consult with other school systems in the area that are doing similar things such as this, all the better. They may have some ideas about how they move their program forward.
And that's another great idea about this website is that with that organizations, I know they, in conversation with them, they told me that another local school is also on board with them. So as you put things out there, other opportunities might open themselves for area towns, not just within Vernon.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments, Mr. Bouchard?
Thank you. I agree with David that we don't want to burden them, but the students should be able to do it themselves. However, David, our town, probably you know, is full of newly coming immigrants and language, etc., etc. They do need little push in that direction, which the community service people can provide. So, not that I am advocating that they should be utilized, but if there's a need, then they are there, then they would help. Thanks. Yeah.
Bush.
You had said you're reaching out to the community, looking for opportunities for the students to volunteer. How are you doing that? You're just going through the community network, or?
Yeah, and I think the word is out there by the, even with the media and the publicizing of the community service need for graduation. I have to say the community really has more outreach to myself with their own opportunities. I really haven't had to go look as much as things have been presented to me, but I also think it just opens up the collaboration if I was to be able to go to events like the Vernon Community Network meeting and talk about what the expectation is for our students so that they're aware of it and know who a contact person would be. Because I agree, I think students should be able to do it on their own, but I think in the beginning, especially the 9th graders, I think sometimes they need that list to look for, what ideas might be there, or even try to hook them into an interest or a skill that they've got so that you can see what kinds of things might happen for their future based on that community service aspect. So I think there is a lot of help that our department can do in this process, but I agree it's also facilitating them to learn how to do it on their own as they go through the years.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to tell you, I spoke with someone who works at Hockenham Valley, and they said they've been at the food drives, and the students that have been there have been wonderful, very polite, and they said they've been a pleasure to work with, which was nice to hear. So, all right, well, thank you very much, Kim. We appreciate your report. Move on to item 5.3, the 2014-15 district budget priorities. Thank you very much, Mrs. Fisher. I have provided 4 suggestions at the bottom. Certainly that is not an exhaustive list, and these are suggestions. Funding full-day kindergarten, which I mentioned last time. If you needed to do a stepwise, I provided you with that information. Supporting curriculum evaluation, revision, and implementation, as you've heard this evening, certainly in the discussion, that is very key, a high priority for the district. And ensuring that the recommendations of the New England Association and of Schools and Colleges are fulfilled. That's a 5-year process, but and we have not prioritized those highlights because we haven't heard the priorities from NEASC at this point. But that would be another area. And then seeking special education cost containments. That's something that we need to maintain as a priority, I would say, in our budget as much as we can. I'm sure there are others, and I would just so that was food for thought for you. So, anybody have recommendations or change the order or not? That's a lot. There's still priority. You don't. I put get the conversation going. Exactly. Thank you, Mrs. Arden.
Last go round, we discussed the importance of extending student learning time. I know we included that as a priority for our last budget. If it's not included, will that continue to be a priority? Or do we need to name that again as a priority?
It didn't get funded last time, and therefore we asked for volunteers this year for people who wish to flex their hours, come in early, leave late, or come in early or leave late. And coming late, and we did not get any takers on that, so it has not been a priority because it was not funded. We did not have a program to fund. So I'm not sure if I've answered your question or not. Without the specific funds in order to do that, then it has not come to fruition.
And there's no other way to extend student learning time unless we fund
The
extended time?
Depends on what it is. We do have some districts in the state of Connecticut that have added 300 hours to their year, which is huge. I have a couple of schools in their districts, Maryland comes to mind very quickly. And that, of course, they are paying their teachers an extra hour per diem pay, which is exceptionally expensive. There are, Windsor Locks is actually flexing the year they're not extending the day, actually they are extending the day as well as the year. So we have teachers in the summer. That was neutral because they were able to eliminate 9 positions in their budget by getting larger class sizes throughout it. So there are ways to do it.
The board has addressed that as a real issue, the impact on student learning time. We made it a priority, but didn't do anything about it. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't still be investigating creative ways, or maybe no, I'm sorry, David. Am I interrupting you? There are creative ways, other ways. If you brought to us dollar amounts in order to facilitate and extending learning time, maybe we could better position it in the budget. Either maybe it's a long-term plan that we fund over time. Something.
Your discussion. If you vote that as a priority.
Mr. Kemp, do you want to respond, talk about that or something different? Go ahead.
I don't know, is it okay if I say anything?
Yes.
The Windsor Locks example was not, that we learned about recently at the CAGE convention, was revenue neutral. It's more than just the Board of Ed going along with the solution. It also requires that the union agree with what the solution might be. I'm not saying that Windsor Locks example is what we would want to adopt here, but it's not totally the task of the school board. It takes all the collective bargaining units, for that matter, to reach some kind of, and the bus company, to reach some kind of solution in which the ultimate goal of increasing student learning time might be accomplished.
Mrs. Fisher?
I agree with Ms. Sarn that we do need to extend learning beyond the school day. One of the workshops I did attend, I was going to speak about, it basically was not enough time in the day, using after school and summer to increase student achievement and student success. And when we get to that point, I don't know if you want to discuss it now, but that was one of the things that, one of the workshops that I attended. And many of our school districts in our state are using very creative ideas to be able to extend the school day without involving specific classes and things like that. They're doing it through their after-school program. They're doing it in the summer times by having academics in the morning and having leisure activities in the afternoon for the kids to encourage them to get the work done and then have fun. And they're going into the community and getting experts from the community to also do that. So there are many creative ways that we could do that. So I truly believe it should be a budget priority, but also look into different ways of doing it without worrying about teacher contracts and things like that. But teachers work collaboratively with these programs to be able to extend the day and add summer learning.
So it is a funding issue then, for sure.
Right, but what I'm saying is they're finding creative ways to fund it as well as creative ways to work around the contractual issues. And I do have some information that, we talked about during that session.
Mr. Flynn.
Through the chair to Mrs. Bush, the Maple Street School, community school in the afternoon and evening, that sounds somewhat like what you were discussing earlier. Is that exactly what you're referring to? Or
Similar.
Or a version of it?
Excuse me, through you. Very similar. And, but Bloomfield is the model that we were given. And they have a program that they use data from the teachers to help promote the learning after the school and during the summer in the areas that they really need to focus on. So they find the areas to focus on, and they work, and they also are bringing in teachers that are working maybe not directly within the school day, but are working to provide these partnerships with community and bringing in people from the community. They used an example that someone was, for one of the leisure activities, was teaching golf to some of the kids because they have quite a few golf courses where they work. And they use that as almost like a reward to really focus on the academics in the morning in their summer programs. So it was a really good thing, but what I'm getting at, without getting into real specific details, is there are creative ways to extend the learning day and to include summer learning in a way that is, like they talked about not calling it summer school, having a creative name for it, so kids would jump on board.
I'd like to actually make it a motion, so that we're discussing a motion here, that the Vernon Board of Education approve the 2014-15 district budget priorities as indicated on the document that Dr. Conway provided us for discussion. Number 1 being full-day kindergarten in our budget. Number 2, supporting the curriculum development. 3, ensuring that we are following up on the New England Association of Schools and Colleges fulfillment. And 4, seeking to find cost containment for special education. And I appreciate a second.
Mr. Klein.
A second.
Any further discussion, Mrs. Arndt?
To the motion, if it is not, it's not a choice for Vernon to comply with MEASC's report. It's a mandate. So I'm not sure that I understand why we would need to say that that would be a budget priority when we don't have a choice, and we can't simply ignore the recommendations of MEASC. So I'm wondering why that needs to be a budget priority.
But we have to make sure we put the funds in the budget to cover what we have to do.
But if we have to do it, why wouldn't we put that in the budget? I mean, I thought this was more of a, almost a philosophical discussion where this board wants, what this board wants to assure is addressed, and we don't have a choice about addressing MEASC. It has to be addressed. That's my observation. The money should be put in the budget whether the board makes it a priority or not. It has to be done. Secondly, I would like to request the maker of the motion consider a friendly amendment, which would be also to include as a priority extending learning time opportunities for students across the district. And I'm looking forward to Mrs. Bush's presentation about what some of those things could be more specifically, because I don't think it's appropriate to simply say we couldn't do that contractually and then not work to extend the day. So if there are other opportunities out there, I think we certainly should be looking at them. If other school districts have done it successfully, then we wouldn't be taking a risk by adding that as a budget priority.
So the maker of the motion approve that as a friendly amendment or no?
At this time, I don't wish to make an amendment to my motion. I think, knowing where the bulk of our budget is in salary and those type of expenses, that the priorities listed there are going to be extensive as it is, and I'd rather stand on the motion.
Any further discussion on the motion, Mrs. Bush?
I kind of agree with Dean in the way that there are more creative ways to fund that. I don't know if it should be a budget priority in where we have many other priorities that we really need to focus on. But, so I would agree that maybe this is not to put in the budget, but it is something we should definitely investigate and look at how other areas are successfully implementing extended learning opportunities for our students during the day and in the summer.
Any other discussions on the motion on the floor? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of this motion? Anyone opposed? Mrs. On? Mr. Butcher? Motion carries. Now, is there any further discussion on budget priorities? Seeing none, we will move on to the next item. 5.4, 2014 Board of Education meeting dates. Mr. Wood.
I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Education approve the attached Board of Education meeting dates for January 2014 through December 2014.
Second, Mr. Bouchard.
Second.
Any discussion or comments or changes to these meeting dates?
Thank you for the motion. I appreciate seeing that we're still going to go out to the schools. I think that, we're starting to see a few more people each time we go, so it's great that we're continuing to do that.
Okay, any other comments on the calendar? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 5.5, Officer Friendly Program. Dr. Conway.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. As directed by the board, I've had several conversations with Mayor Champagne. He has indicated to me that he has the information on cost from Chief Kenny, and that he is going to include that in his budget proposal. And so I was unable to bring details. He is asking for the board's support in that. For supporting the program. So I'm sorry to report that I do not have any more details, but I did request them.
Mr. Bouchard.
Can we table this motion to the day when we have the information?
To the day when we have what?
When we have the motion information, Dr. Conway's name, that we can have this discussion at that time.
Well, we've already, we talked about it at our last meeting and asked for specifics. But Dr. Conway's saying that the mayor has the specifics.
He has the specifics.
And he's planning on putting it in the budget.
That's what he told me.
Mrs. Arndt.
That was my question. If the mayor is planning to include it in the budget, why do we need to move to request the officer-friendly program be reinstated?
Through you, Mrs. Fisher, Mrs. Bush was asking for a motion of support, I think was the original request. And I was asked for details. I do not have, nor will I be getting the details. It's up to the board. This was a tabled motion. You can
I would guess that
leave it off the table.
the mayor wants to be able to show the town council that the Board of Education is in favor of this. I would think that would be his logic behind it. Mrs. Bush?
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education requests the town of Vernon, town council, to provide funding to the Vernon Police Department for the officer-friendly program and reinstate the program at all the elementary schools.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Polino. Any further discussion? Mrs. Arndt?
Well, that's not the motion that I got, and the motion that I got says at no cost to the
There's
board.
a revised one, Lori.
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't think you have the revised motion.
And I'll add that to my motion. At no cost to the board.
And I resecond that.
Sorry.
Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 5.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Bouchard.
Madam Chairperson, didn't we have the position officer friendly in the system before?
Yes, we did.
And it was taken off?
Yes. And we're trying to get it back in.
I understand that, but I'm saying is, I was wondering what happened.
I would assume it was funding. I don't know how many years ago we lost it. Okay, item 5.6, establishing the superintendent's goals.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have written 3 goals that follow along with the evaluation. So obviously, we've talked about the goals that go with the district improvement plan. Those are academic goals, and some of them are social emotional health and safety, and also parent and community involvement. But these are goals for leadership and for the superintendent specifically. And so some of the things that were mentioned certainly were our district and school improvement plans. People were presenting data in very different ways, and the goals were not as aligned. And so I was looking to pull that all together. In addition, we need to start reporting out to the community and to staff on our accomplishments, how far we've come in terms of curriculum development, in terms of reading, writing, and numeracy. And in addition, we talked about communicating the district's vision. And so using that team structure right now, if you recall, as part of the evaluation, it's very clear that my direct reports know the vision, and the reports just below that in the hierarchy are aware but not as clearly articulated. And then we need to just continue that and make sure that everyone is aware of the district's vision. So those are the 3 that I came up with. Mr. Holt.
I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education approve the superintendent goals for the 2013-2014 as presented.
Is there a second? Mrs. Bush? I second that. Any comment, discussion? Mrs. Arden?
Well, it seems to me that goal number 1 is more of a job description. I would assume that that would be what the superintendent would be doing anyway. Should be doing without establishing it as a goal. I understand that reporting district accomplishments, again, I would call that a job description, not a goal. And I was hoping that the superintendent's goals would be more quantifiable, that when we read the district plans, the improvement plans, and Dr. Conway presented us Board of Education goals for learning for 13-14 that included percentages, increased percentages regarding college credits, completing Algebra 1, participating in job shadowing, completing English 2. She made the teachers, not she, this makes teachers accountable. And it seems to me that the superintendent needs to be held accountable in a somewhat similar fashion, in that these goals need to be met. And if I would think that those are goals that the superintendent should be accountable for as well. So these goals to me seem to be job description, and I would think that we should be doing something more quantifiable, like attaching percentages. We talked about graduation rate, we talked about attendance rates, and Dr. Conway provided us the information about preparing students for college and career readiness. And if that was a goal important enough district-wide, then maybe that's something that should be a goal for the superintendent as well.
Those are my goals, Mrs. Dunn. I gave them to you and you approved them a couple of meetings ago. These are called leadership goals. Remember, there were several different parts, and one was the academics and district improvement plan. That's why we wait to do the evaluation until after the district improvement plan is included and reported on. And these are leadership goals, leadership qualities. You had several different, I can't remember, I didn't do the documents, so, but one of them would have the leadership goals on it, and the other would be the district improvement goals, such as those that you received. Those are mine.
13-14.
That's this year. That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
So we've already approved those academic ones. We've approved those. We've already approved them. So now these are additional goals that we've talked about. These were leadership goals, which are, as Ms. Darcy said to the board, exceptional. You can't quantify this.
So it's on a Likert scale and very, very subjective. But the other goals are my goals.
Yeah, I agree. These are leadership goals, and as a CEO of the Board of Education, this is what I want to see you doing. I want to know that we're doing these things, that you're communicating things down. I think leadership goals are what I was expecting to see.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one comment about assuring alignment and consistency. You don't think that that's a given, that needs to be a goal?
Any other questions or comments? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve the goals as presented. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 5.7, participation in the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education Lighthouse District. Dr. Vernon.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. The previous board had met with Nick Caruso from the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education about the Lighthouse project on a couple of occasions. Last winter, he came out and spoke with the board about the project. It's a marvelous project for board leadership and board growth, professional development. We were accepted into the project if you so choose. It does start in January. There will be 8 sessions. I spoke with Mr. Caruso a little while ago, or a couple of weeks ago, and he has requested that the board take a vote of support to enter into the Lighthouse District training. It's very sad if not everyone agrees, and we do have new board members, and so a new mix here. If not everyone agrees, and out of 9 people we end up with 5, then it's very difficult to move the board along in this professional growth. So he was looking for at least commitment, knowing that everyone can't make it all 8 meetings most likely, but he was looking for a commitment, and found that boards that vote to participate get a lot more out of it. So I brought that forward to the board. Mrs. Bush.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that the Vernon Board of Education participate in the Lighthouse District training with the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education. Gabe.
Is there a second? Mr. Hool.
I'd like to second the motion and follow up the discussion.
Okay, discussion, Mr. Hool.
During our last summer, when we met with Nick Caruso, he presented to the board all the findings on, what different boards have been able to accomplish by participating in this Lighthouse project. For the new guys who haven't had the opportunity to hear it, this is professional development for us, so that we can do our jobs better and really understand, what is making or moving districts ahead. The information, he spent about an hour and a half with us this past meeting. It was very informative, and I think we would benefit greatly from it. And again, it projects out to the community how we act as a board. So I would encourage you to support the motion.
Mrs. Bush.
I also spoke with Nick Caruso about the Lighthouse program at the Cape Convention, and he has taken a training that has taken years to get through and modified it down to 8 sessions, and taken the best of the training and put it into 8 sessions. So we're getting a tried program that would be beneficial to making us a more effective board. So I would definitely support it.
Any other comments or questions?
That's a question. Do you have any idea the timing of this, like how long they are and over what period of time?
They will begin in January, and they will be done before the 2014 year ends. So it'll be 8 sessions around the course of the year. Otherwise, I don't know. But they're individual board sessions, so it's not as if the board has to travel somewhere else. Mr. Caruso or whoever the trainer is would come here to the board. individual board sessions.
Is each meeting about, what, 2 hours?
I'm
would you say?
guessing about 2 hours.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve participation in Lighthouse District Training with CABE. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, item 5.8, acknowledgement of Connecticut Boards of Education Award.
And
Mr. Kemp.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get your attention on the subject of the lighthouse. We passed the motion. Before we move on, if you would allow me, I was going to suggest that the new members, if they haven't already received the book that we all read or tried to read and discuss together, The Iceberg is Melting. If they haven't received it yet, you know, it's a short read, but it's, I think, very worthwhile when you consider that we're going to move into the lighthouse as well. Or even if we didn't, it's worth reading. But we have so many new people.
Great. Thank you. Now, item 5.8, Dr. Conlon.
Thank you very much. Our Board of Education applied for and did receive the Board Leadership Award at the CABE CAPS Convention on November 15th. And we have a plaque here. And we'll put on the latest year. So our board has received this in 2000, 2001, 2002, 3, 4, 5, and then took a little hiatus and is now back 2012 and 2013. And I think everyone received a picture of the people who received the award in your folders. We will hang it on the wall. We'll put that on it.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations very much.
Mr. Kemp.
There's only one board in the state that has won this more than we have. I think they won 11 times.
Thanks for sharing. Okay, item 5.9, reports from Board of Ed liaisons. I'm sorry, Mr. Bouchard.
Taking David's point to the next level for the benefit of our new associates. I was reading the book, Iceberg is Melting at home, and who comes to me, my older son, who works at the Associated Press. Dad, what's you up to? I said, I'm reading the book. Yeah, I've read this book. He said, my chairman of the board at the Associated Press, he read that and he recommended to his staff over there also. So it's interesting to read that book.
Okay, item 5.9, reports from Board of Ed liaisons regarding attendance at organizations and committee meetings. Before we move on to the CABE stuff, does anybody have reports from PTOs or, I know we might not have had a chance since January's first one. All right, now we move on to item 5.9A, report from Mrs. Bush and Mr. Kemp on their attendance at CABE.
Mr. Kemp and I first attended the delegate assembly on Thursday, November 14. And we passed a lot of resolutions that CABE would be lobbying legislators to make stances on. And one of the things that really will affect Vernon is that the resolution is that CABE urges the legislature to restore full ECS funding based on the ECS formula to Alliance districts and create additional Alliance grant funds. The state has been flat funding our ECS because we are an Alliance district. And once we come out of the Alliance district, what CABE is really trying to do is protect our ECS funding rate. So what they're going to be doing is lobbying that we're going to be getting the increases along the road like all the other school districts. So when we come out of our science district funding, that we won't be losing money. So they're really pushing to protect us for when we do come out of the Alliance District funding. And that was very important, and well, there was a lot of support for that. So that was one of our meetings. I also attended 5 workshops, 5 sessions. You heard about the one that I'll be getting into a little more detail. I met with the State Board of Education with Mr. Kemp as well. He'll be making some comments on it, maybe. What they did was they did it in a little different format. They took and grouped us into 3 different groupings, and we focused on where our interests were and where we were. And our discussion was, very well done. But instead of us sitting in a panel and the Board of Ed was speaking about it and answering our questions, we had a really good discussion about it. The part that I wanted to really hear about was the teacher evaluation, because there's so many changes happening in it, and I wanted to get a first-hand view on what's happening. And they had experts in each one of our groups that talked about, that were right in the middle of all the development, and instead of just asking Commissioner Pryor. So what they suggested was to use CAS to get ideas to make the evaluation easier for administrators, and use creative solutions, that they would be giving you creative solutions. They suggested to use complementary observers because they have to take the same training as the administrators. But many of the people in our group objected to that because here they will come in, they will observe your teachers and give feedback, and then leave. And we really weren't comfortable with that. We really wanted the administrators, who are the ones that are day in, day out in the building, to be doing those assessments. And we felt it was very important, and that was the commonality in the group. So that was a really good session, and really good discussions, and everyone around the state was feeling the pressure on trying to get all the observations done and creative ways to try to get through all the observations. I also attended a session improving the success of pre-K and kindergarten children through early childhood collaboratives and district initiatives. And we had a presenter that was the person that dealt with the pre-K collaborative. And what they're doing and what they're suggesting to do was a model they had in Milford. Milford uses the readiness model, but they have their own little microcosm called Discovery. And what they're doing is they're working in conjunction with the local private pre-Ks. And they're getting funding, outside funding, to give training to the private pre-K teachers in order to develop them. So they're meeting the needs. So we're getting the kindergarten teachers. The kindergarten teachers are getting students that are meeting some of the criteria they need to come into kindergarten. And what they're doing is they're providing training sessions for the pre-K private schools or private people that make them aware of the things that should be happening within the preschools to prepare the children to come into our schools, as well as providing pre-K PD to the pre-K teachers. And they're doing this through private donations, and I have a whole folder I can share with you and give to Dr. Conway, which it sounded like they're working really hard to prepare the children early, because a lot of times we don't see the children until they walk in the door for kindergarten or go through a kindergarten screening. And they want to make sure that the whole community is working to prepare the children. And I thought that was really an excellent and I have a whole folder that I will share with you. The other one I attended was using digital learning environments to support student growth and success. That one focused on how to use a program that is free if you get the basic program called Schoolology. And the magnet schools are using that to keep in touch with their students and set up things. It's something that we can look into. But I know the correct schools are definitely using Schoolology, and they gave many examples on how to use that. And I did go in and play with it a little bit. And during the session, they gave us the opportunity to actually use it. I attended then a workshop with Mr. Kemp on magnet and charter schools, what your district must know, and how we can all get along. And we didn't all get along in that session, I hate to say. It was presented by two lawyers, and I think Mr. Kemp also has some information on that one. But the one that I spoke of earlier was called Not Enough Time in the Day, Using After School and Summer to Increase Student Success. And the presenters, besides giving us really good information, had people in the audience that were actually doing the programs. And what they did was they set up after school and summer programs. And what they did was they wanted, the parents were worried about getting homework done, but they also wanted to give the opportunity to have the kids have fun. So they would always do the academics first, and then have the, like I said, leisure activities. And Bloomfield has a program, and that's something that I really think we should look into. And they use the data from the teachers, and they have interactive tasks that they've developed and in the weak areas to increase student achievement. They give time for the students to practice these skills. And they also have the activities afterwards to kind of like our community school, because I know our community school helps with learning activities, and then they have fun activities as well. So it's very similar to that, but I really would like to look into what they're doing in Bluefield. They're getting grant funding and for the program, but they also realize that parents are paying for after-school programs for their kids. So that's another source if they have the ability to pay for a tuition. They also are getting tuitions for some of the students. So they're working kind of like on a sliding scale, how they do with the Y and things like that. They also work in partnership with the Y and after-school programs. And our Parks and Rec also have a after-school program that we could work directly with. And all these things were going through my head as I'm going and I'm listening to the speakers, and I'm trying to think, where can we be, getting support from other community areas to help with extending the school day. They make sure that they have very upbeat programs. Everything they do is very upbeat to get the students very involved. They have something where the communication between the teachers and the program are always checking in and making sure that they're on the right track and doing that. There's federal funding from the 21st Century Learning Grants. They also get state funding from after-school grants on a 2-year cycle. So they're getting these fundings from grants that are already in place. But the 21st Century Learning Grants are where they're getting the bulk of their money. They also go to community foundations that would possibly cover these programs. And what I said before, the parents are already paying for after-school programs. So you could feed the money into that to be able to fund that as well. And what I said before about the summer school programs. Make sure it's academic in the morning and fun in the afternoon, and be creative instead of saying it's summer school. Be creative in what you call it. Like, I think we have the Discovery program where they do science in the schools and stuff. Be creative and, like I said, academics in the morning and arts and leisure in the afternoon. And let's see if there's anything else I pulled out of that. No, I think that was a lot of information, and I was just trying to get down everything as I could hear it. And it was a really good program. And those were my 5 workshops that I attended.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Laura? Okay, now we'll move on to Mr. Kemp.
It was a very enjoyable time. One of the benefits is the opportunity to network with your peers, either over at lunch or during sessions. And we had very interesting exchanges as to how one board in Branford, what their committee structure is and how they do things and what they vote on and what they don't, what they include. Fascinating stuff. You know, why do you do it that way? Well, and so there's a lot of back and forth. That's one thing you can get out of going to these conventions. Having said that, I'll tell you a little bit about the delegate assembly. There were no less than 78 items that we pondered and voted on individually. I'll just highlight a few of them because I bet you don't want to hear all 78. One of which was to exempt, to continue to exempt boards of ed from preschool requirement that boards pay tuition for non-special education students who choose to attend magnet schools. We made that pretty clear. We passed a resolution supporting that and enforcing it, and I had an opportunity myself to talk to the commissioner about that, and he smiled. I didn't mean he's going to do it or recommend it, but I think that was pretty universally supported. Then, it's very interesting. We're urging the legislature to allow boards of education autonomous authority to establish up to a 1% carryover for unexpended funds. Now, we have something here called capital non-recurring budget, which is great. We take it if we have any, quote, surplus or unexpended funds, as I would call it, and we will ask the town to please put that. This is a more formal initiative to carry over 1% without going to the council about that, and it seems to be building up momentum. I'm going to turn a few pages here. 6. Sorry. Unless you want me to stop and go through all the ones I just went by. Did you hear a motion to do that? No. Okay. We adamantly are opposing the implementation or adoption of any form of a voucher system. And we re-supported our point that in the finance area, 1-44. Legislation making state mandates on local boards of education unenforceable unless said mandates are fully funded year to year by the state legislature. Once again, unfunded mandates, but that they be unenforceable unless they do provide the funds to accomplish them. Also, in the area of special ed, that funds pass directly to each school district and in the current year. And then, I think most importantly, 1.59. there quickly. When considering special ed placements, to consider the needs of the entire class of students when placement decisions are made. So those were formally adopted amongst the 78 in the delegate assembly. Now, if I could just quickly shift gears to the convention, I also attended 5 sessions. And one of the key messages I got out of the entire convention, you know how we graduate kids with X number of credits and they have to, accomplish a certain number of grades to do that? Well, there is a significant movement throughout the country and in some parts of the state to award diplomas based on mastery, not necessarily a grade. They're called mastery-based diplomas. And apparently there are more than 2, and not as many as 20, school systems in this state that are now mastery-basing their graduation document. Possibly Dr. Conway could elaborate a little bit about that. I just hadn't realized that it had, that thought had moved on quite so as much as it had. One of the most interesting sessions that I attended was basically Windsor Locks explaining to us how they've moved in that direction, how they've accomplished additional time on task and teaching time that became revenue neutral to the town and the school board. Very interesting. They decided to do it, and they engaged the stakeholders, and they did it. One of the other workshops that I attended was in the area of magnet schools, and it was very, very interesting to hear the perspective of some towns who are hosting magnet schools themselves and how they perceive the benefits of a magnet school. The sending towns like us were fewer in number represented in that particular gathering. Our concern is that we're having to spend money, and the other folks that, the other boards of ed that are hosting them are looking to attract people. So it was an interesting perception based on which one you were in that session. The other sessions were with the State Board of Education that I mentioned, Magnet, and I'll leave those 2. They weren't my favorites, so I won't even go into them really. But I also want to say I really hope that we can get a printout, if not an audio or video, of the keynote speaker's address, who was Ann Bryant. She was excellent. Very down-to-earth person. Explained to us the international 50,000-foot level of education. Interesting comments about the PISA tests. The kids that Singapore does not test, apparently they call them the rural schools. So Singapore has great scores, but surprise, they don't test everybody. She talked about...
David, I have always felt that way myself. Since I started going to the Cape, I always felt that we should be able to get the video of the speeches of the keynote speakers.
Sometimes they're copyrighted, Amarjeet, and the speakers are paid a fee and they don't wish to have it done. But we think that we're going to be able to get Ann's speech. She also talked about the 30,000 word gap between children who have some advantage and those that don't. And a 30,000 word gap by the age of 4 is a number that is staggering when you consider that that's just how significant and how large a number of vocabulary that they don't have. I think that's enough for now. I encourage anybody to go to a seminar like this.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Ms. Leonard?
May I ask Mr. Kemp a question? In your list of however many things your legislature was going to look at, you mentioned something about placement of special ed students with consideration for other students in the class. Did I misunderstand that? I'm just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit.
Go back and find it.
Sorry.
It's okay. There was a It's just that there's 78 of them and you're going to dig through the pile. So 1-59. Okay. Least restrictive environment. The issue was the need to ensure that appropriate consideration is given to placing all special education students in the least restrictive environment. That was basically the issue. And the resolution that came encourages the State Department of Education, the General Assembly, and each local and regional board of education to consider the needs of the entire class of students when placement decisions are made. That's what I said.
The entire class of students when placements are made. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for your reports. Next meeting, Dean and I will be at, though you actually touched on some of them, I read too. On to item 5.10, Finance Committee report. Mr. Picaro gave quite a lengthy report at the Finance Committee meeting at 6 o'clock this evening, and has given the board a very lengthy report in your board packet. I'm hoping you've had an opportunity to review it. I know that there are 2 action items, is that correct? Or perhaps both moved into one action item? And so if Mr. Picaro would like to introduce those 2 transfers, budget amendments, then if there are any questions on the packet, you could ask those after that. Mr. Picaro?
Thank you, Dr. Conway. Through the chair, there are 2 budget amendment requests that require board action. The first is in your packet in the beginning section of the transfers under, it's labeled Exhibit G. It is a transfer of $15,241.31 from our reserve for negotiation account to various accounts, including accounts at the high school and in central admin. These are funds that need to be used to ensure that these accounts don't go negative, to support new department head positions due to our reorganization, and a differential in a new human resource salary position. So I'm looking for the board's approval on that budget amendment. And then a second budget amendment that came in today that was included in the handout that I provided separately from your board packet this evening. That is a budget amendment provided from Pupil Personnel Department in the amount of $25,250 to fund newly created positions as stated in the budget transfer. I'm looking for the board's motion to approve of both of those amendments, please.
Mr. Gould?
I'd like to make the motion that the board approves those 2 amendments that Mr. Picaro just spoke of. I appreciate a second.
Mr. Clean?
I'll second that.
Any questions or comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Picaro in regards to his budget? Yeah.
Yes, Mike, just in general, thanks for the packet. I wanted to watch some football this weekend, but, jeez. It's a general question on any of the line items. How are we trending? I mean, when you encumber funds and then you have some left over at this stage in the year, it's hard to tell whether that amount that you have encumbered is more than you anticipate encumbering, or less, or is right on target. So the general question is, are any of these particular accounts out of your expectations, for better or for worse?
Through the chair to Mr. Kemp. First, I think just as a general rule, we encumber based upon what we expect we're going to expend. Get as close to that as possible based upon trends and actual experiences. So I think you may be interested, if we look at the big picture, if we look at our total encumbrances and our total expenditures, you'll see at the back page of the year-to-date report that our total percent used at this point in time is 93%. However, to your point, that does not include some major encumbrances that we expect to have turn into expenditures. And the reason why we haven't made these encumbrances yet is because we're encumbering, to your point, exactly to the expenditure source. So, for example, if we look at our bottom line and we were to add in payroll taxes, I expect to fully expend $522,000 and change in our payroll taxes. That's the encumbrance that we would need to take off of the bottom line. And the list goes on to include coaching stipends of $202,000, severance payouts, magnet school tuition, our utility bills, for example. And so at the end of the day, when you look at some of those encumbrances, when you pull them out and you combine them with a conservative estimate of a 65% reimbursement of our excess costs, we're probably looking at an actual bottom line at this point, encumbrances, expenditures, and expected state funding conservatively, again, at a 65% reimbursement rate for special education costs, at this point in time at about $639,000 in the black.
That's something we haven't heard lately, but all right. Please continue to update the board, as I said, for better or for worse, as any of these particular items skew one way or the other unexpectedly. We need to know that. We need to tell the council that and keep them apprised, the sooner the better, so that they don't feel that we've been keeping anything from them one way or the other. Thank you.
If I may, through you, Madam Chair. One thing, Mr. Kemp, that I would like to highlight to your point is our special education update that I passed out this evening as well. And it's actually showing that we're 47,000 positive. Again, to your point that there's a fluctuation in that account. We started the fiscal year off at close to 544,000 projected as a negative balance. We're now slightly to the positive. And so obviously we'll be keeping a close eye on that and hoping that it continues to trend in that direction.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions for Mr. Picard? Thank you very much for your report.
Oh, I'm sorry, make a comment. I attended the town council meeting and Mr. Picaro was there. And two items that were from the Board of Education. One was a review of the emergency drill that we had in the beginning of, before the school year started. And they literally spoke about it and did a review of the lessons learned as well as the positives that came out of it. We also had our boiler, they approved the boiler situation where they had already approved it, but now they did the final approval, and they realized that it was covered under our insurance, and there was just a $10,000 copay. So I just, through the finances, I thought that would be something that we wanted to make sure that we noted.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to item 5.11, Board of Education Rules of Procedure. This is basically a lot of information that's in our bylaws, but I thought in an effort to keep our meetings efficient and more productive, that we would, bylaws are usually, our policies are more broad, and these have a few more specifics in it, sort of based on the town council's rules of procedure. So I just wanted to share this with you, and hopefully you'll agree to approve it. I did want to point out in the general rules number 2, the second to last sentence talks about when you get your agenda, if you have questions about it, it would be beneficial if you contacted the superintendent with those questions before the meeting, so then who's ever giving a presentation or responding will have those answers on hand at that time, so we don't have to. And then hopefully the night of the meeting, we don't need follow-up questions. So, Mr. Kemp?
Yes, I like the completeness of the document. There is one amendment I would like to make, and that is on the first page, in the area of general rules, item 1. It is the third sentence that I'd like to make a minor revision to. And it will, the first word in that sentence is the word items. And so my motion is to add the following words after the word items. Deemed by the chair to be urgent. And then then following is the word may be added to the agenda at the regular meeting upon an affirmative vote, et cetera, so that the idea of urgency would be the measure by which the chair would determine whether or not it should be acted upon that night. If not, people should be given the opportunity to, I realize I'm speaking to the motion. I should have asked for a second.
Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
Bush, okay. Now you may speak to the motion.
Thanks. Yeah, it would then give us, unless it was absolutely urgent, the opportunity to do what we normally do, which is get something in our packet and consider it and then vote on it, whatever. So it could still go to a vote if it were urgent, but that urgency be the bellwether, basically.
Any other questions or comments on that motion? Okay, nobody has anything, okay? Then, seeing none, we'll take a vote.
On the motion, on the amendment.
On the amendment, yes. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay, it's unanimous, thank you. And now, is there any more questions?
I move approval of the rules of procedure as amended.
Is there a second on that motion?
I second it.
Okay. Any discussion or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Hopefully we won't be getting home at 10. Stick to these rules. All right, item 5.13, student incident report. Mr. Holt.
I move that we enter into executive session and invite the superintendent and Ms. Buell and anybody else.
That would be it. I don't anticipate the board will be taking any action afterwards, so I don't know if you want to finish the rest of the agenda first.
So I
Allow people to leave.
would add to my motion that we do this at the conclusion of updating the calendar. We move into executive session. And I appreciate it.
Is there a second on that motion? Mr. Polino? Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, then we will move on to item 6.0, to review and update the Board of Education calendar. Does anybody have anything, any questions or any additions to the calendar? Seeing none, item 7.0, opportunity for questions from the press. Do we have any questions from, any questions? No? Okay, and we will now move into executive session. Thank you very much.